Podcasting is more than just talking. It's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
It's the BS with Bob Schmidt podcast, and my guest this time around is an entrepreneur, a marketer, a social media expert, a 5% athlete, and most of all, friend of mine, Joshua Coburn, joining me this time around. Written a couple of books as well. Through the Eyes of an Abstract Mind, Inspiration on Demand, and the brand new book, Shit That Needs Said. Joshua, thanks for being on with me today.
Absolute pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
So let's talk first of all about the 5% athlete piece, because I don't know if I know what that is.
Yeah, that's sort of new for me. At the beginning of the year, I was approached by some representatives from 5% Nutrition who are basically a huge fitness supplement company and lifestyle brand that revolves around being a 5%er.
Which means what?
5%ers are the individuals in this life who are willing to do whatever it takes to reach goals, reach their dreams. So 5% of the population basically are willing to do that. So if you're a 5%er, that's what that means.
All right, I'm one of the 95%, unfortunately.
Oh, no, you can change that. You can change it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that then. How do you change that? How do you become the 5% if you're in the 95%?
You set goals and you do it no matter what. That's it. Simple. You take action. You do what you have to do. Like for me, my goals are travel, and like let's talk about that. Usually people let fear get in their way, or let others' statements or judgments kind of get in their way. For me, that's not in the equation. I'm scared, but it's about courage. It's about just taking over and going and doing and overcoming that fear. So that's what it's about.
How do you get over that fear, though? I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs especially, marketers do. I think everybody has that problem. Everybody has that fear. How do you get over that?
Just like anything else, it takes positive self-talk. I mean, it literally takes sitting down and saying, like, you can do this. You're capable of this. And talking yourself up, talking yourself through it. And when you do that, it'll slowly encourage you to start ticking small goals off of this big dream. And that's what it has to be, because traveling around the world with a backpack alone is terrifying to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But that's not how it starts. It starts by getting comfortable traveling, maybe for some people, across town in their vehicle alone. And if that's where you need to start, then that's where you start. And you do it by telling yourself, like, look, Josh, you can do this. Just get up, go out the door, grab your keys, get in your car, and drive. And you break it down as tiny as you need to do it, so you're ticking off those goals. For some of us, you have to start that small, some even smaller. And others, like in my case, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to book this trip to Iceland, and I'm going to go.
Is it a lot like that movie? Remember that old movie in the 80s or maybe early 90s that was the What About Bob?
It's been a long time, but I think so, yeah. It's Bill Murray, right?
Yeah, it's just basically baby steps, so dealing with things, writing it down or taking it off in chunks that are big enough that you can just do on a daily basis, rather than set this so lofty goal and think that, okay, I can go from nothing to running in a marathon in a week.
100%. That's exactly what it is, because the person that I need to be to reach that goal, whatever it is, as lofty as I make it, I'm not that dude yet. Like, I'm not that person. I don't know how to be that person yet. But starting real small in the bottom, I slowly learn how to be that person, and then eventually there you are.
So when did you start this quest to be that 5%er?
It's funny. I mean, I didn't really even think about being a 5%er or know that I was a 5%er. I was just a dude that goes out and kicks ass and, strikes goals off my list, because I'm not here long, and I want to make sure that I pack my life as full as possible. The fact that I'm nearing 40 and still alive, still doing things, is like a crazy miracle to me.
You're young though,
right?
Nearing 40. But when I remember when my mom turned 40, and I thought that she was old.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then when I turned 40, I'm like, and now it's funny. I've got friends in their 20s, and I've got friends in their 70s.
Sure. Same.
And it's kind of weird to think about that everywhere along the line, there are goals that people are setting, and there's goals that people are trying to reach. But that whole 40-year-old thing,
right?
That's a hump. I turned 50 this year.
Yeah,
I honestly, I'm scared of that.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I'm not at all. Like 40, 50, 80. Like I have no concern about my age because I'm still going to do what I do.
Right.
I might have to do it a little slower, but I hope not because I'm going to work a little harder if that's what I have to do. A lot of people look toward like retirement and things like that, like because I can't wait to start to slow down as I get older. I'm the opposite. I want to work harder. I want to do bigger. I want to be better, and that comes from just being able to really knock out, these loftier and loftier goals, and whether it's financial or travel or whatever, it's just once you. Well, it's just like a bank account. You start with $1 investment, and eventually you end up with millions that are turning over on themselves. And that's exactly what kind of interest I'm trying to put into my life. So to go back to your original question of when did you start this quest? To be honest, I've always had it in me. I've always done things different. I've always been different. But I wrestled with it until I was 20 years old, and I hit bottom when I was 20. I was ready to check out, ready to be done with this life because I believed other people more than I believed in myself. And they said I couldn't do it and I had to live in this box. And I believe that. But the second that I hit bottom, kind of wrote out my suicide note and got my fears and insecurities and all these things out, then I didn't have anything to lose. Now I can do whatever the fuck I want in spite or despite what others think because it's irrelevant. It's about what I want to do. People now, 20 years later almost from that moment, are asking me, how are you so happy? Some of those people that were a problem then. And my first thought is, well, I didn't listen to you. My second thought is
right.
Because I'm not listening to anybody in terms of people saying I can't or I shouldn't or whatever. Like, there's no good reason not to do these things.
Is it hard not to fall into that trap of listening to what somebody says?
I think opinions are valid and I think advice is good, but I don't surround myself with those people, so I don't even hear it. Like, those people just are not in my life, period.
But how do you do that? Because every one of us has that cancerous person in our lives. We've
right.
all got that. It's either a neighbor, it's a relative, it's a coworker, it's you name it. There's every one of us has somebody that drags us the hell down.
Right. Well, I mean, in terms of like a coworker or somebody, I mean, I literally eliminate them from my life. That doesn't mean I don't see them from time to time. It just means, I have more of a passing conversation. I'm not going out for dinner with them on, a Thursday night to have long life conversations because long life conversations with these individuals leads to a dead end for me. And I'm not okay with that. But like my parents, they're simple. They like to stay around home. They don't like to do the things I like to do. So I'm not going to talk to them about, I'm not going to ask my father about international travel because he has no interest in it. He's going to tell me it's not cool or good or what's great about life. So I'm not going to talk to him about that. It's that simple. Avoid the topics if that's what you need,
Yeah, but I mean, you can avoid the topics, but you don't avoid the person sometimes. So when it
Yeah,
comes
absolutely.
to like parents and family and stuff like that, and when it's coworker too, I mean, sometimes you just can't.
Right. Well, and that's it. You also have to determine, is that job or that coworker more or less important than happiness?
True.
I mean, you can make that change. Same with parents. I don't care who you are. I've had to, for a time in my life, eliminate being around my mom because it was just a negative time and it wasn't working. So what I ended up doing is just kind of not going to family functions, and I would see my additional family in other places and things because it was just a negative situation. And I did my best to discuss it, but there was no communication being had, and if we can't communicate through it, then there's no reason for me to be present and embroiling myself in something that's at that time unsolvable. So I just stepped away from the situation, and that was great. It took stress away, and everything was absolutely fine. And,
right.
and to kind of get back to your original kind of statement, something that I always like to refer to is like, I'm not going to ask, a poor person about investment banking.
Right.
Because they're going to tell me it's stupid because all they care about is getting food. So to the point earlier, I'm not going to talk to my father about international travel because he doesn't know it. He doesn't give a shit about it, and it's not relevant in his life. So you have to pick and choose the conversations you're having with people as well. And if somebody doesn't understand you and doesn't support you, get them the fuck out of your life because they are not worth being there.
Joshua Coburn joining me on the BS with Bob podcast. You might hear some ambient noises in this show compared to other shows. We're actually doing this show outside live at my favorite place in the world. You talked about pursuit of happiness earlier, and, you know, I think I'm at the point in my life where happiness means more than money. And I know that the other day you posted something about that you know, you're filling your bank account with what? You know?
Freedom, yeah, absolutely. Money means freedom, and to that end, there's a different way to think about that, which I'll address in a minute. But for me, yeah, I don't put dollar bills into my bank account. I put freedom in there, because the more money that I have in my life is not about money. It's not about number.
Well, you live
of
pretty
dollars.
simply.
I do, and that's it. Like, people assume that I have, like, you know, millions of dollars, drive a super nice, you know, Porsche, and live in this mansion. Fact is,
you drive a piece of shit.
Yeah, I drive a car that's old because I don't need anything nice, and, you know, I have a backup 1971, you know, flat black GMC pickup that's badass and cool, but it doesn't cost any money to have, and I live in a really small apartment that most people, when they walk in the front door, would be like, oh, this is a nice little place. But if you walked down the hallway any farther, you would find that there's virtually nothing in it. You know, there's no decoration on the walls in the bedroom. There wasn't even a bed in there. I slept on the floor at this place for almost 4 months, and my landlord stopped over to have a conversation with me. And it was like, do you not have a bed? I was like, no, I don't. She's like, oh my gosh, let me get you a bed. You got to have a bed. I was like, I'm cool. Like, I'm good. She was like, no, I'm getting one, because she just couldn't fathom living like that. But when I leave, I'll leave the bed. It's not mine. It was a gift. Like, you know, so it's cool.
Yeah. When I first met you, you'd just written the book Inspiration on Demand.
Right.
And there's a lot of quotes and a lot of Joshisms, really. I mean, Joshuaisms. And I appreciate that. I really like that. I know that since then we've been following each other on Facebook and on Instagram and, you know, just all of the social medias, and we've become friends since then. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because a lot of my followers follow you because of the fact that we're, you know, that we're kind of connected. And I had the chance to the other day see some of these people that follow you, meet you, and actually break down. Right. Yeah. That to me was one of the most powerful things that I've seen in a long time.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It happens. And I don't. This might sound pompous. It's not intentional, but it's a lot of times. No matter where I go, I'll have people, you know, stop me for a handshake, a hug, a selfie. But just as often, I have people that do break down because they're like, "Look, I was at my worst, and I saw your posts on social media, or I read your book, or, you know, whatever, and you're what kept me moving. You're what kept me going forward on days that I didn't think that I could." And, like, these are strangers, people that follow me that I have never met. And, I mean, they're friends to me, like follower or fans. Like, that seems weird. They're friends, you know what I mean? They're people in my life. But, you know, I'm vulnerable. I'm real. And those individuals feel that through what I do, and to have them give that back is such an honor. So it happens pretty often, and in public places too. It's crazy.
Right. Well, I'm just going to bring up something that happened last night.
Yeah.
So it was like you and I and my son Hayden were eating dinner at a restaurant in a small town.
Right.
5 hours away from where you live.
Yeah.
4 hours away from your home. An hour away from where I live. We're eating dinner. Somebody walks in. Josh.
Right.
That was so bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. It happens everywhere I go. I mean, I've been in, you know, different countries and had somebody, you know, be like, "Oh my gosh, like, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, you know, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" You know? So, I mean, it happens. And it's, you know, it's an honor for me. Like, reach and influence does matter. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't care what anybody says, you know, call it famous, call it whatever you want. But influence makes a difference. And I mean influence in terms of, like, and you can have influence on your friends, your family, your 5 people you surround yourself with, whatever, work. But influence, if you're able to have it, and we all do to some degree, but if your words and presence hold weight of any kind and you can leverage that, absolutely leverage it, because you can make a really negative impact, but you could also leverage it for good and make a really positive impact. And that's what I try to do.
Let's talk about business. You're an entrepreneur, you're a marketer, you're a social media guy.
Sure.
Let's talk about, taking some of these things that we're talking about now and rolling that into maybe starting a business or, having that idea go from in your head to a piece of paper to actually making you money.
Sure.
How do you do that?
It's we could do a few hours on that alone, but for me, it's very simply taking action first and foremost. If you have an idea or a million ideas, write every single one of them down and try them all. An entrepreneur isn't someone who's successful. An entrepreneur is someone who did it as many times as it took to make something work. That, to me, is what it is.
Is that a serial entrepreneur?
I think everybody is.
Yeah. See, my understanding of an entrepreneur is, somebody that has those ideas and keeps working with them and keeps rolling with them. Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot of people call themselves serial entrepreneurs. Is that just that times 100?
It might be, yeah. Because, if you have X successful business and you've used a specific formula that makes that work, and it becomes then passive income, which would be the goal, what would be the reason to not do that a second time for more passive income, right? Mm-hmm. Or a third time or a fifth time or 100th time. If you could have a million businesses piling freedom into your bank account, why would you not? Granted, there's additional stressors and things like that, and if why would you not is stress is the not, then you can stop that anytime. So, yeah, that could be a serial entrepreneur if you want to focus on one thing and it helps you live comfortably and allows you the freedom that you want, the amount of freedom you're looking for. That's fine. Nobody says you have to do it, a million times in a million different ways. In my case, I have failed in business 7 times in different ways. And I learned something every time. I don't look at it as a failure. The business has failed, but I learned a lot of cool shit. Mm-hmm. And that made me better at what I do now. And I'm not failing.
Well, the thing is that you have to fail in order to succeed, I think. Because and you hit the nail on the head when you said that you learned lessons from each and every one of those 7 businesses.
Right.
I find it interesting that one of the things that we talked about the other day when we weren't on the air, you said that you told your high school principal when they sat down and said, hey, let's talk about what you want to do with your life, Josh.
Right.
What the hell are you going to be doing with yourself? And you just said you want to get paid to be you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I do right now. But I was told then, well, that's not really a thing. It's not really feasible. And I was just well, it is. Why isn't it? You know what I mean? And they just didn't see the same vision I did. They were thinking very linear. They were thinking very traditionally. And like we were talking earlier, when your dream is this lofty thing, you have to eventually become the person you need to be to live that dream. Mm-hmm. And, here I am 16 years old saying this. I didn't know what that looked like yet. I just knew that I wanted to make money by being me. I eventually figured that out. I had ideas. I had, goals to strike off the list. I was going to write books. I was going to do, public speaking. I was going to do these things. But ultimately, I knew that was just a piece of the many things I was doing, and I was going to be kind of my own personal brand. But I didn't know what that looked like then, so I couldn't explain it then. I didn't know. I didn't have the education.
Well, 20 years ago, I don't think they really had the brand term out there. You know what I mean? It was there was the brand of Tide and Ford and
right.
There's brands, but I don't think people really thought about the branding of BSwithBob or
right.
That type of branding. I think it was more product more so than individuality.
I'll agree with that to some degree because let's go back and talk about a guy like Burt Reynolds. He was an actor, but he also, after Smokey and the Bandit, also appeared in a few car ads. I think if memory serves me, I think I remember seeing him in some car ads and stuff because now he's related to these certain things, and he was a man. So Burt Reynolds, the human being, now had endorsements, or Michael Jordan, or Bo Jackson, because
right.
now he was in multiple sports.
Right.
So even in the 80s, it existed, but it was kind of only reserved for these certain people, right? The elite or whatever. So in small town Iowa, looking at a kid who's 15, who's naive and doesn't know much about the world beyond books and National Geographic magazine, stating that this is what he is going to do. I'm sure it sounded absurd to an adult who was very in a box. That's okay. But that's what worked for me, and it's still working.
Social media wasn't a thing up until probably 10 years ago, and maybe even more so 5 years ago, where people started using it more regularly. How does somebody go from small-town Iowa to 25,000 plus people on Instagram and maxed out on Facebook? And, how do you do that?
Time and discipline. I think people look at, like, the word opportunity, I think is something that, people are out looking for, but it's created. We create opportunity just like we create happiness, like we create confidence, like we create courage. All those things are our responsibility to create anywhere we are. And any city, small town, country, I don't care. It's our job as the individual to create those things. And
is it about creating, or is it about taking the opportunities that are given to you? Because there's a lot of times where there's opportunity there that you didn't have to create, that it was just happened to be there.
Absolutely.
And noticing it first of all, and then grasping it secondly.
Yeah, always. I mean, I think we create opportunity, and I think we create opportunity by working for it. So, like, when something is presented, if it fits kind of your path, you have to choose to take it. If you're scared of it or think I'm not good enough and avoid it, that's a lost opportunity that you still created. And, I don't believe opportunities come to people that sit on their couch and smoke weed 24 hours a day and do nothing. Now, if that's the life you're looking for and you're happy with it, cool. But that's not the life I'm looking for, and that's not part of my goal set. So if I'm going to have opportunities hopefully come to me, it's going to be through hard work and discipline to make people recognize, oh, this guy's worthy of my passing along this opportunity.
Can anybody do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it should be understood that there's a small percentage of people that are willing to do what it takes to do that. And, that goes back to the 5% thing we were talking earlier. I look at musicians who, they'll sleep on couches and have nothing and tour all over the country for 25 years before they have a career and start getting paid.
Before they were an overnight sensation.
Exactly. Yeah.
In air quotes.
Exactly. And I just read a thing on Usain Bolt about his, millions of dollars and medals and everything. And he ran for, 20 seconds or something like that? But he trained for 20 years. Maybe he literally worked to achieve that in 2 minutes, right?
Right.
But he worked for 20 plus years for those 2 minutes to make his whole life make sense to the rest of the world. But leading up to that, people are like, why are you training all this stuff? It's not worth it. You've been doing it for 15 years. And he's like, no, I'm going to get it. 5 more years, 10 more years, whatever it takes, I'm going to get it. And he is doing it. And then he did it. But a lot of people would have given up in 2 years, 5 years, 15 years, not 20 years. They would have fucking stepped out and been like, I'm out. Can't do it. It's not worth it. But he saw the vision. He did not stop. And he was rewarded very heavily for it.
See, that's a great story. I wouldn't have even thought about that. You're spending all this time building the foundation in order to do the one thing that lasts 2 minutes.
Right. It's like, think of, I'll go back to music. Think of a band who's been writing and playing to 5 people in shitty dive bars all over the world, and then suddenly they have a huge hit on their hands on YouTube or radio or whatever, and now their 10 self-funded albums are suddenly worth money when they were sitting in crates in storage for years and worth nothing. But because of that one song, the world discovered everything they've been doing. And now, to your point, overnight sensation, fine. But they worked for 40 years to have that moment happen. They got all their money at once, where most people get incremental sums of money their whole life. They could retire after that single hit, right?
Right.
But they ate shit all those years to do that one thing and be done. Where most people live pretty okay for a lot of years on incremental income instead. It's just a different way to skin a cat.
Well, let's parboiling them works the best. If you look at that, if you look at that person who has crates of music,
right?
So they produce all these albums and they've got them sitting in in storage bins somewhere. Wouldn't marketing be to their benefit, like getting somebody to come out and help them to hey, here's XYZ band, let's rock and roll with these guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's funds there to do that, but that's where different things start to come into play. I mean, if you're a musician and you don't know how to market, and you don't have the funds to work with somebody who does, or a company to market it, or a label where funds are at, then all is that you're working to make something happen. And at this point with YouTube and iTunes and Spotify and Pandora and all these things, you can create your own business around your own music. And to your point, it's different than it used to be. You could live a good life being a musician, a session musician, a touring musician, and do it traditionally, incremental income your whole life. That is absolutely doable at this point. So it just depends on what your goals are too.
Right. Josh Coburn joining me on the BS with Bob podcast. Entrepreneur, marketer, a social media expert, and author of a few books. You got a new book coming out called Shit That Needs Said. What is that about?
Yeah, it's the whole title is Shit That Needs Said, so you can kick all the ass. And what it is it's not a book that's going to give you a ton of advice. It's not a book that's got like 5 steps to super success. Like, screw all that shit. You will figure it out as long as you believe hard in yourself. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff, a lot of people out there that are discouraging. I mean, we see it. We see negative things on TV if you choose to watch it, on social media, whatever. This book is there to encourage. It's there to tell you exactly how it is and remind you that you are fucking capable of kicking all the ass every day, even when you don't think so. And that's basically what's within is kind of, and it's kind of a combination of words and art. So it's a little bit different than most books are, but it's about opening it up when you need a kind of a kick to the nuts or a punch to the face. Be like, damn, okay, I'm ready. I'm on fire. My soul's lit back up. Let's go friggin' do this. That's what the book's for.
The words, obviously written by you. The art, done by you as well?
Nope. The art, and myself and my graphic artist friend Chad Wittrock worked together on this kind of collaboration. And we approached it from the standpoint that I don't want, from the slip cover, because this book is going to have a slip cover, all the way down to the contents. I wanted it to be more than just words on a page. I wanted it to kind of have a really visual, artistic, different element. So people who maybe weren't into kind of motivating, inspiring things that are maybe into art or into something a little different can also kind of look at this and see that it's something different, and maybe they'll get something out of it in a different way than they anticipated. But I just wanted it to kind of hit people in a different way. I didn't want it to be typical because I'm not typical. So that's what
no way.
Yeah, right? Who would have thought? So that's what it was about. It was about really kind of, and again, I think when somebody says, oh, I'm going to write a book, people are like, cover, front cover, back cover with words on it. And inside is a book with pages with words. Like, that's what people think. For me, I'm like, I'm going to write a book, and I don't have any fucking rules. So I'm going to make this book. It's going to be filled with art, with motivation, with positive words. It's going to look this way. It's going to have a slip cover because I want some really cool art, but I want it to look really traditional too. So, like, it's all these things, and nobody does that shit. So we're like, we're doing it.
I thought maybe I don't follow the rules. I actually finished with the ending, and then we were running it backwards or something,
which would be
that.
Cool. Next time, and I'll call that book Perspective.
Shit that needs said. Shit that needs said, so you can kick all the ass. Give me like an example of one of the lessons in the book.
You know what? Let me get into my phone real quick here, and I'll actually just read it to you. Because we're just wrapping it up, getting it ready for print. So,
well, I know that when you talked the other day, you mentioned that you're going to be rolling it out a different way than you have in other books.
Yep.
I mean, this one's not going to be brought out at all on the big people. I mean, it's basically going to be done through JoshuaCoburn.com.
Yep, it's all going to be independent. We're just going to hammer it out that way. We're going to do limited runs with different color schemes on the slip covers and stuff like that, so it'll become collectible as well long term. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I I just kind of wanted to make it special. I want to touch every one of these that go out. It might, because I travel a lot, it might take a little longer for something to go out instead of going out, Amazon style where it's like within 24 hours, which if I'm around, I'll do it. But if I'm traveling for a week, you might have to wait 7 days. Mm-hmm. But I will touch it. I will sign it. I will pack that thing for you, and I'll get it to you. And that's kind of the DIY punk rock guy in me that really wants to do that, because this is built from the heart. It's real, and it's emotional. And I want people to feel it all the way down to me touching every one of these and getting them in their hands.
Well, I heard a rumor. Well, actually, it wasn't a rumor. Something I heard you say to me when we were doing my radio show the other day.
Yeah.
You said that you may even hand deliver a book or two.
Yeah, my hope is to give we haven't gotten quite there yet, but what I might do is offer up different packages for this. So then, maybe people order up a book and it's signed by me and signed, which you can get for X number of dollars, right? And then you can get a book that's maybe signed by myself and Chad, since we collaborated, or you can get a book signed by me, Chad, and get a poster with the artwork for this. And maybe one of the options will be, you can hit the gym with me. I'll hand deliver the book and you'll hit the gym with me, or I'll hand deliver it anywhere in the lower 48, and then we'll go to dinner and you can ask me anything you want, and for X number of dollars. And I mean, it might be a little expensive, but if somebody really wants that, why not?
Honestly, that's what bands are doing nowadays.
Totally.
Back when I was growing up in the 80s, you scored backstage passes. You got to go backstage. You got to spend some time with the guy. Nowadays, everybody's selling a package. If I want to go backstage, you have to pay for that. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk to him, you got to pay more. And if you want to take your own picture, it's even more.
Right.
And, so, I mean, it's kind of the way the world's going.
It is, absolutely. And part of me feels a little weird about it, because if you see me, out and about, stop me, let's take a photo, I'll sign your crap, whatever you want to do. I'm cool with that. But if you want special one-on-one time, my time is valuable, and if I'm going to literally go get on a plane and come to you and hand deliver this and sit down at dinner with you, you're important. Don't ever think you're not. However, my time is also important. So if you want a specific experience with me, I'm absolutely more than willing to make that happen. But it's, it costs me money to get on a plane and to do these things, and people have to understand that. So that's what it takes to make those things happen.
Honestly, one of the lessons that I've learned in life is that, we can always make more money. You can never make more time. So time is one of the most valuable things out there, because we've only got a llimited amount.
Absolutely.
You don't know if, today could be your last day,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got to live everything to your absolute fullest. There's no other way to do it. That's absolutely how I look at it.
So, were you able to find some of the quotes or some of the book on your phone?
Yep. Yeah, I got one right here. It's a short one, and it cracks me up, because this will give people insight, if the title hasn't enough already, to show the difference between your inspiration on demand, which is important. Because of what it is, because inspiration on demand being a book filled with quotes which help encourage and stuff, just like this does, and you can get it when you want it. When it comes to this book, which again, shit that needs said so you can kick all the ass, that is a pretty kind of in-your-face title.
Oh yeah,
but the book itself is that way. So it's a little more aggressive than inspiration on demand. To me, it's kind of like for those that really need a kick in the ass, or maybe it's kind of like step 2 from inspiration on demand. And that said, here, I'll just read this one, because this one's a short one, and it's really straight up. And it says, "Through sickness and soreness, we persevere. Forward movement or bust, motherfucker. You can't stop the unstoppable." That's very different content.
Yeah, it is.
But at the same time, it also is damn it, that's right. Forward freaking movement or bust. I got to do this, and no one's going to do it for me. So that's kind of what it's about. But here's another short one. It says, "Bringing negativity to your life is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. You're gonna fucking lose." You know what I mean? If you're going to bring negativity into your life, you're going to chop yourself off at the knee when you're trying to run. Doesn't work.
Right. Was it hard for you to go from being the inspiration on demand and when I first met you, you were more PG. Then you moved into more PG-13. Now you're kind of more, I would say, more real and more true to who you are. Was it hard to make those steps to show that publicly? Because I understand that you can do that within the confines of the comfort of your, yourself and with your friends and whatever. But then to take that step and to show that to the world.
Well, I think it was. I debated it a lot because, I'm an extreme guy. Period. I take everything as far as I can take it. Look at me. Physically, I'm that way. When I hit the gym, I'm that way. I'm always taking it as far as I can. I'm pushing. I'm a freaking workhorse, period. And for me, Inspiration on Demand and that kind of time period was kind of it was a PG-13. It was my Disney self. But also the market that I was working within, which was primarily speaking at schools and stuff, they needed to see a guy who was heavily tattooed, which is scary to invite into large schools to talk to students. In terms of the PR for parents, I get that the superintendent's got to be look, this guy's safe, he's okay, check him out. He's not going to taint all these kids. He's going to add value, and you'll see. Trust me on this. That I needed to do in order to break that market, which I did. But I've grown past that market. I will still speak at schools. I do still speak at schools, but my value is bigger now and different now, and it is. It's more real. It's more aggressive, and it is more extreme. It's who I am distinctly. And I always said, well, you get what you get with me. But, I'd often say when I meet people, yeah, you get what you get with me, but also I cuss like a sailor, so just so you know. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm not surprised. And it was things like that. It's well, they saw me as this, but they, everybody makes additional assumptions. And they were already assuming it. So I'm just screw it. It's time to take that step because I want to be more real, and I don't want to just reach students. I want to reach the broadest audience possible, and that comes with vulnerability and being completely real. And you get what you get with me, just like before, but now it's just not watered down currently at all.
Joshua Coburn, worldwide, new book, Shit That Needs Said, so you can kick all the ass. How do we find you?
Find me at joshuacoburn.com. That's where you'll find all updates on what's happening with myself, with the book, etc. And the book you're not going to see much on just yet. You'll start seeing little things being leaked on social media, which generally you can just Google me, Joshua Coburn, or at Joshua Coburn, and you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. But that's where you're going to find updates on the book, on what I'm doing, where I'm traveling to, who I'm with, what crazy shit I'm up to, fitness stuff, all that, 5% stuff. You'll find it all out there.
Honestly, this is the first one of the, I'm going to call it in air quotes live, because we're live on location. We're actually, We're at a cabin sitting on a picnic table doing this podcast. I'd like to do more of these.
Yeah, it's awesome. Being in this environment, listening and just looking around at the big sky and the trees and chilling out here and the birds chirping, it's much better than being confined to a studio. Not that studios are bad, but it's much more freeing. It allows you to relax a bit more.
Kicking all the ass with my buddy Joshua Coburn.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
The BSing with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com.
This has been another podcastforhire.com production.